Andre Dillard's got value, especially as injuries pile up across the league. And you got to do that, Is it better to have the depth? Is it better to hold on to him? Is it better to get what you can while you can? You start talking about compensatory picks, how he's got to think ahead. How many free agents do I plan to sign next offseason? That's Howie's equation.
Is a traveling Tuesday here on Birds 365. Eagles will be off to Ohio. We'll talk about that and all things Birds over the next 2 hours here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, Birds 365. Yeah, McDonald. Yeah, McMullen. He's in the guest chair, and we'll get some thoughts from him over the next half hour before he heads off to the last full practice he's going to get a chance to cover for the Eagles this preseason. Jeff Kerr sitting in for Johnny Mac today as my co-host. He'll stick around into hour number 2. McMullen, not a bad day. Good. You don't have to worry about the sun or the heat or whatever. It's nice out there. You're going to spend an hours. No, maybe not hours, but maybe an hour and change on the field today. Your last heavy lifting for the season.
I was surprised. Not the last heavy lifting of the season.
Oh, of course.
But I was surprised with all the heat, no bites, and then bang, the first half decent day and all kinds of fisticuffs. So that was a little bit of a surprise. So maybe it's even a little bit nicer, a little bit cooler. Maybe tempers will flare even more. Who knows? Who knows?
Do you guys get excited like it's the last day of like the open practices for the Beaver? Because I know you guys got to be there all year, but is there like a sort of, oh, wow, it's over, that type of thing?
No, we hate it. We'd rather watch practice.
They don't give you anything during the year anyway.
Yeah, but if we watch practice, in the old days, you could watch practice. I mean, the guys have been around for a while. They would let you watch practice in the regular season until they all got nuts and everything's CIA. And the ironic thing is, the game has gotten simpler and they've gotten more paranoid. Yeah, the league as a whole, not just the Eagles, the league as a whole. People at the start of Andy Reid's era, they were allowed to watch practice here. I was allowed to watch practice for years in Tampa Bay and Minnesota. I mean, it was a regular occurrence. You'd watch practice, and now, you got to get out. You got to get out. Even in the regular season, you have preseason. You have very limited training camp camera time. Because they're so afraid of things getting. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Wasn't Chip's first year? I think the Eagles put the kibosh on because people were like tweeting what was going on during practice.
Well, that's another. We're. I just tweet what I see. Occasionally you'll get a text or an email. This is too much detail. I'm like, what? You can't tell a reporter not to report. Now, the league holds these credentials over people's heads, and hey, kick me out if you're going to kick me out. I mean, if we're there, we're going to report, and that's what it is. But yeah, I mean, it's if you think about the days of Bill Walsh, where everything was so complicated, and you have these things, and they didn't care. They would let reporters watch practice. And now they're all running the same damn thing. It's all college-based offense. It's all splitting the field in half. It's all RPOs. And they're, we can't show this. I got a text. I'll tell you on the air. I don't care. The Eagles were 32nd in motion. So they ran a motion play in practice, and I described it in my column. You can't do that. That's too much detail. What do you mean? It's a simple motion play, and it was a backdoor screen. Everybody in the league runs it. It's absurd the way these people try to protect state secrets. And by the way, Lincoln Financial Field, the one open practice for the fans, we're kicked off the field 15 minutes. Can't take pictures. They can take videos and cameras to their heart's delight. And you see Jordan Davis putting Cam Jurgens on skates and That's the reason you saw the touchdown. We weren't allowed to film that.
Yeah.
The fans are allowed to. It's absurd on the surface.
There was a debate in Buffalo about that because of the Bills' open practice.
Yeah, the Bills are terrible, by the way.
Yeah. The fans were filming everything, and the reporters and the reporters got into it with the fans, and they said, "Look, like what? It's a double standard. It is." And I mean,
well, reporters shouldn't be getting into it with fans. It's not the fans' fault.
No, it's not, and that's what I said. I'm like, you can't blame the fans for doing, what fans do. I don't blame them one bit. I do it.
All right, Johnny Mac, let's get back onto the field. You mentioned
you got me on the tangent early.
Maybe it was the weather, that it wasn't just absolutely a sauna that led to Eagle altercations on the field. I'd probably point the finger more at Andre Dillard, seeing as he was involved in every single one of them. We know Andre is going to either be here as the backup to Jordan Mailata, or he could be traded between now and the first game of the season. Feeling a little pressure. He missed some time because of a concussion. I know neither you nor I were there to break down exactly what ticked off each of these altercations, but when one guy is involved in all of them over the course of a practice, and they haven't had any altercations all preseason long, you got to question as to what's the mindset of the guy who's involved in all of them. Where do you think Andre Dillard's head is at?
It's a good question. We were supposed to talk after that practice, and the Eagles removed him from practice as a precautionary measure because he was coming off that concussion protocol, and his helmet got ripped off by Patrick Johnson. Probably just what we just talked about. They probably was more so trying to keep him away from the media because he was scheduled to talk to the media. If you go back to his rookie season, and you had that high profile incident also with Derek Barnett, and there was that photo that, let's just call it watery eyes. You can just, and he's never outlived it. Fans keep bringing it up, and he's not tough, and he's not this, and he's not. And I think sometimes, guys push him, and he's winning reps, which to me is the most important part. He won every single rep he got a bite in. And they push him because they think they're not pushing Jason Peters back in the day. Nobody's pushing Jason Peters. They push Andre Dillard, and stood up for himself. I think it's a good sign, to be honest. I think it's a real good sign. I don't see anything wrong with it. And he's a good player. Unfortunately, he's blocked here. The Eagles have Jordan Mailata. So that's a difficult decision for Howie Roseman. We saw a trade yesterday, JJAW Arcega-Whiteside. So somebody was willing to pick up the contract. You can imagine if he's got value. Andre Dillard's got value, especially as injuries pile up across the league. And you got to do that, Is it better to have the depth? Is it better to hold on to him? Is it better to get what you can while you can? You start talking about compensatory picks, how he's got to think ahead. How many free agents do I plan to sign next offseason? That's Howie's equation. Am I going to get a compensatory pick for Andre Dillard? Because the contract will probably be pretty high. So if he signs less than he loses, you might get a third round compensatory pick, maybe a fourth round at worst. All that plays into the equation. I think the Eagles think they're contenders, so I'd rather have the depth. One injury, and we talk about the depth on the offensive line. I talk about it all the time, and it's good compared to other teams, and that's what I try to stress. But if you lose Lane Johnson, go to Jack Driscoll, it's worse. It's a lot worse. If you lose Jason Kelce and go to Cam Jurgens, it's nice, but it's worse. If you lose Jordan Mailata and go to Andre Dillard, it's nice, but it's worse. And it gets incrementally. And if you go to Andre Dillard to LaRaven Clark, well, then you're in deep trouble. Even though it might be the best third string left tackle in football, but nobody wants to be down to their third string left tackle.
You know what, John? You just led to my next question. If they would trade Andre Dillard, I guess it would be LaRaven Clark, but who would back up LaRaven Clark at that point? I think it's a massive hole at tackle if you do trade Andre Dillard.
You're just like every other team, and that's how the other half lives. If they lose their left tackle, yeah, you're scrambling, you're helping, you're playing Dallas Goedert on that side. You have to change your entire offense. You have to help. Yeah, so it's I'd keep them, and then maybe revisit it at the trade deadline and say somebody desperate and Jordan's completely healthy, and then you roll the dice maybe. But I'd keep Andre Dillard.
All right, J-Mac, you mentioned the Eagles found out there was value in JJAW. I'd probably argue the other side. The Seattle Seahawks traded a guy that they were going to cut to the Eagles for a guy that they were going to cut. So they're only going to be members of each other's teams for the next 24 hours. It's just kind of a positional swap. Seattle has a shorter depth chart at the receiver position. Eagles have a shorter depth chart at the safety position. So it's kind of a trade of convenience. And I'm not sure I would be if I was a betting man, I would bet neither one of these guys are on the 53-man roster when their two teams cut down. Did they really get value for JJAW?
Well, yeah, because they need help, and why not get another dart for the dartboard? And you saw what they're trying to do with Josiah Scott, and that I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know everything about Ugo Amadi. I don't even know if that's how you pronounce his name, but he's played nickel corner. He's a safety by trade. Exactly what they're doing with Josiah Scott. He's also a good special teams player. So when you say he might not make the team, but I think he might make the team just because he can play special teams and they need help in kick and punt coverage. And if he can do that and sort of wait, he could. That's what happened with Andre Sacheret last year. I mean, he was brought in to be a special teamer. And if this kid can play special teams, and there's some highlights out there of him making some splash plays as a gunner. I don't know if there's any consistency. Highlights are highlights. They don't show the lowlights.
Yeah.
So they might be even worse. I don't know. But I think it's worthwhile because, as you said, Jody, JJ wasn't making the team. So, to be able to get somebody who has at least a chance to make the team makes some sense to me.
John, speaking of the safety position, Jaquiski Tartt, I'm starting to wonder if he's going to make the team.
Yeah, I would. That stock it ain't Tesla. I mean, he missed 3 days for personal reasons. He came back. He was on the third team. Now, the only thing helping Jaquiski Tartt is he's got a lot of money in the bank, granted in a different organization, but he's played on a good defense for a long time. Maybe shot physically. I don't know, but the Eagles keep churning this backup safety spot. They look at Kayvon Wallace. They don't like that. They moved Josiah Scott. Now they pick up Amadi. So, maybe they don't like Josiah Scott. Maybe they don't like Andre Sacheret. Reed Blankenship, an undrafted rookie that they gave $50,000 to, got first team reps. They're trying everything. So, it might default to, well, at least Tartt's a veteran. Let's keep him at the end. They know what he can do, or he's so buried. It could be either or, to be honest.
Is Ugo going to be in Cleveland? Is he going to get there in time to take part in the joint practices that the Eagles have coming up? They're leaving today to go to Cleveland and will compete with the Browns for a couple of days before playing the exhibition game on Sunday. Last year, you reported, all the guys who were there reported that Sirianni very much into the joint practices and put a heavy emphasis on them, even to the point of getting you guys to go undefeated, 4-0. Man, they're the undefeated, the champions of joint practices in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles. They'll probably take the same bent again this year. How much of the safety position will be decided by what's done in the joint practices first
Yeah,
this week
that's
against the Browns and then against the Dolphins next.
and yeah, both and the Dolphins as well. Yeah, they'll know after those 2 sessions of joint practices how they're going to proceed at safety, or who knows, maybe when they cut down to 53, they'll do something else at safety. It's one of those positions we talked about yesterday, Jody. I said safety, running back, tight end. That's where they need help when it comes to depth, and they went out and got a safety already. If they're not happy with that safety after those joint practices, and yeah, he'll be in Cleveland. He might be in Philadelphia by the end of today. That stuff happens quickly. Seattle, by the way, good for JJ. Gets as far away from Philadelphia as possible. So I wish him well. He's actually a good guy. So didn't work out, but it's good for him to get a change of scenery. But yeah, he's going to have to hit the ground running and try to pick up things as quickly as possible. And luckily, they've shifted a little bit towards away from the cover 3, I believe, in Seattle. So maybe it comes a little bit easier, since half the league that's so obsessed. I go back with secrecy. Half the league runs the same damn defense from Vic Fangio. So maybe that makes it a little bit easier for him.
Yeah, John, you brought up my next point here. Why didn't it work out in Philadelphia? It felt like that 19 preseason, he had a lot of promise. And then he wasn't getting on the field the regular season, and Doug was using him as a blocker. And he had that touchdown against the Dolphins, and he had that big catch against the Cowboys in Week 16, but it just never seemed to pan out
here. Yeah, I mean, I think he lost his confidence. Confidence is big. We see it with Jalen Reagor as well. Confidence is big with professional athletes. And, I think there's some revisionist history. I put that on Twitter. People saying, "Oh, the Eagles reached for JJ." No, they didn't. No, he went.
Yeah, they did.
No, they didn't.
Okay, that's your opinion, John. My opinion is a reach. I had JJ as a 3rd or 4th round pick. They took him in the 2nd round. In my opinion, it was.
Well, I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is, Jody, and Ruben did this story. Ruben Frank, he went back and looked, and there's 10 other draft guys that said no. Mel Kiper said he would have been a 1st round pick. So I'm glad you got it right, but other people got it wrong.
Okay.
And the assumption that overall he was this massive reach. No, yeah, a couple people had him going to the 3rd round. A lot of people had him going in the 2nd round. Some people had him going in the 1st round. He was a heck of a college player at Stanford. Everybody talked about his contested catch ability. Never developed at this level. Got no separation. A lot of people had that concern, and you read the scouting reports. Ruben's got like 10 guys that had him as a 2nd or a 1st round pick. It's you hear the same thing with Jalen Reagor. I'm glad when people get individual outcomes right when they predict with drafts. I brag about Aaron Donald. I got that one right. I hit a home run. I also got Ryan Leaf wrong. I got Ryan Leaf way wrong, as a lot of people did. So I'm not talking about individuals. I'm glad you got it right. As a whole, JJ Arcega-Whiteside was considered a premium level prospect, and people do this revisionist history. They do the same thing with Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor was going to the Saints, bang, at 24. And people are, oh, the Eagles reached. No, they didn't reach. They got the evaluation wrong. The player didn't live up to the billing. But yeah, I do have a problem with the reach aspect of it. And then people go to DK Metcalf, but they don't know the Eagles had a red flag on him. The Eagles weren't going to consider him because of medical reasons to day 3. The decision was between JJ Arcega-Whiteside and Paris Campbell. They both haven't lived up to the billing.
And the Cardinals took Andy Isabella too, so they took him before DK.
Yeah, a lot of people had DK medical red flags. A lot of teams.
All right, Johnny Mac, with the fact that they're heading off to Cleveland for a couple of days of joint practices, what do you think that the coach is trying to achieve here? Is it any different than last year? You were there for all 4 practices last year, 2 against the Patriots, 2 on the road, getting a bus and go up the turnpike, so it wasn't get on a plane like they got to do twice over the next week and change. But what is the main goal do you think Sirianni's trying to achieve with the team in these joint practices?
Well, I think it's a little bit different from last year when it was about more about evaluation for a rookie coach learning his new team. I think this time it's more about preparation and more about those high expectations and getting this team to a high level as possible for the regular season. I think we all think they're a playoff contender. How much higher can they go from that? But yeah, I mean, that's where the starters are going to get most of their reps for the week. A couple guys will play in the game because they have to, but the deference players, as I like to call them, they will get even more deference. I will think if last year was any indication, they're going to put way more weight on the joint practices for the starters than the actual preseason game. And the preseason game will be to figure out the bottom of the roster, those last 4 or 5 spots, figuring out, maybe you throw Ugo out there as quickly as possible and see if he can swim a little bit, or see if he can at least show the athleticism on special teams as a gunner. By the way, you can also return punts. Rick Saratella told me that yesterday. He was a good punt returner in college. Maybe that plays into it because the Eagles need a punt returner if they trade Jalen Reagor, which is still a potential.
Speaking of which, John, I know you mentioned on Sports Illustrated who you think the last 3 cuts are going to be today, since they need to get down to 85. I'll leave the floor to you. Who's getting cut?
Yeah, that's I tried to figure it out through the guys who were pretty much non-existent in the preseason opener. That's a bad sign. If you're at the bottom of the roster and you get no reps in the preseason opener, that's a bad sign. There's for Carson Strong, who didn't play at all, though, might be a little different at quarterback because they could be doing that. All right, let's let Reed Sinnett have one game. Let's have Carson Strong have the next. They might be thinking of it that way. But guys like Christian Ellis and Mario Goodrich, the corner, they didn't play at all. I don't think they're saying, all right, let's have 1 week Josh Blackwell get some reps and then have Mario Goodrich the next. Maybe, but those are 2 guys I focused on who didn't play much at all. Then you got to put the injuries into it. Like who's what positions are struggling. Sometimes you just need a body. But the 90 to 85 cut, obviously those guys aren't close. So I don't think guys like Ellis and Goodrich are close to making this team. So they'd be candidates to go. But we'll see how they handle it.
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance they're going to cut Carson Strong today because he needs to play quarterback these next 5 days. He's going to get some time, maybe only a little on Sunday, but he's going to play a little in the joint practice.
I think he's going to play a lot. By the way,
Jalen Hurts is not playing Sunday. You don't think there's any chance Jalen's playing Sunday, do you?
I don't think so. I don't see why they changed the process from last year. Maybe he gets a little time in the last preseason game because that was the game. Jeff, and you're here. You're the better preseason. Remember that was the game he got sick, right? So there was some thought that he'd play a little bit in the last preseason game, and all of a sudden he got sick. So, but that first one, I don't think he played at all. He played 10 snaps in the first game, and that was it. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to play.
Yeah,
And
And why ruin? By the way, why ruin the perfect preseason? Why ruin it?
that's true.
He shouldn't play at all.
Hung up the
And that'll
perfection
go
number.
down in the record books like the Ravens. That's what I said to Jody yesterday. 158.3, a perfect preseason.
well, even if you're looking around the league, like all the teams that joined practices last week, Dallas, Denver, they didn't play anybody. And the one guy Denver played, he got hurt and is probably out for the season. They're starting middle linebacker. Tampa Bay and Miami, no one played. Skylar Thompson played the whole game. So, yeah, that's where I agree with you, John. I think we're going to see a lot of Carson Strong on Sunday.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, God bless you guys, by the way.
Do you think he'll be worse than Reed Sinnett was this past week against the Jets?
Well,
hey, Reed Sinnett did have a go-ahead drive there.
I mean, there is some real aspect to the thought of being a game player and not a practice player, but there are some guys who just show up for games. I hope that's Carson, because you don't show up for practice. He's been terrible at practice, and it hasn't been close between him and Reed Sinnett at practice.
All right, even though it's probably not going to be Jalen Hurts, he'll be Jalen in practice the next couple of days. So maybe I should ask that question about that rather than the Sunday game. How much does Jalen need to work the ball to Devonta Smith? John, you've told us all throughout the preseason that it's Jalen throws to A.J. Brown and he throws somebody else. He throws to A.J. Brown and he throws somebody else. And he throws A.J. Brown twice in a row, and then he works in a pass to somebody else. And it's not always Devonta Smith that he hasn't gotten as much action. Before the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown, we were all of the belief that, well, Devonta's just going to take a step up and be a 1,100-yard guy instead of a 900-yard guy from year one to year two. Now, all of a sudden, I don't want to say he's become the forgotten man, but he's become the de-emphasized man. How important do you think it is that Jalen and Devonta get back to the level they were at last year, if not above and beyond it?
I wrote about that last week, I think. I think that's more of a coaching problem than anything else, because the Eagles offense, I just kind of explained it in my opening rant, is simplified, right? It's a college offense, half field reads, a lot of RPOs. And when you have that, you have primary receivers, right? And you go off the primary to the sort of high-low reads. You go up the primary, and then you go from there, maybe have a check down to a third progression. But so, normally A.J. Brown or Dallas Goedert, and I always put that in there. Dallas Goedert has actually gotten more targets than A.J. Brown. They're generally the primary receivers. Now, I think I know at some point, if you're Shane Steichen and Nick Sirianni, you got to mix it up, right? As good as those two players are, if other teams you start getting to the regular season, and I know you're going to default to A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert all the time, they're going to make it very, very difficult. So you got to make Devonta Smith the primary receiver, Quez Watkins the primary receiver, other guys the primary receiver on certain plays to break tendency busters, whatever you want to call it. But that to me is more on the coaching staff and the play calling than it is on the quarterback. The quarterback is trying to do what he's told to do. And if he's told that A.J. Brown is the primary receiver, A.J. Brown typically is going to get open, or Dallas Goedert, vice versa. He's going to throw the football to him. So to me, that's more of a coaching thing than a quarterback thing. And it seems like the Eagles are starting to realize that, because they're getting more people involved. Devonta finally came back, and he got more involved. So maybe they're starting to figure that part of it out. But I do put that more on the coaching staff than I put it on Jalen.
John, this was talked about amongst the masses nationally about Jalen Hurts taking off on that 3rd and 5. And, obviously we know the end result. He got hit by Quincy Williams. Egregious as Robert Saleh called it. But everybody said he shouldn't have taken off. But if you look deeper at the play, and I still remember watching it live, I didn't see anybody open there. I actually thought it was the right decision by Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody open. And I guess the thing with JAKIB, especially in the preseason environment, and especially you saw what happened to Zach Wilson. Don't be a hero. Don't try to get other yards in the preseason, especially. But it's also hard to expect a competitive athlete to go, oh, just give up. But when it counts, don't give up. That kind of stuff is really, really hard. So I think people are nitpicking. No, I don't have a problem with it. If you want, there's the one criticism of Jalen Hurts. He comes out of the pocket a little bit too quickly, which is fair. You'd prefer to climb the pocket a little bit, manipulate it, keep your eyes downfield. But he's also a phenomenal runner. So it's also a catch-22. Do you want to take that out of his game? I don't want to take that out of his game. So it's a really difficult tightrope. He's a really unique player. I use that term all the time. Gotta live with it. That's the type of player he is.
Right. I don't think you'd be handicapping yourself if you took the running ability away from Jalen Hurts' game. That's just foolish, and I don't think the Eagles are going there. But as we did point out on yesterday's show, John, how many running plays in that opening drive that the Eagles scored on?
0. Yeah.
Yeah,
0. Got one called back, but it was a scramble. It was a scramble.
They're looking to pass the ball this year.
I think that was egregious.
Oh, that was a hold. Come on, Chad.
I didn't think it was
Eagles
egregious.
glasses off. That was a hold. That was an egregious hold. That was egregious.
I got to watch that play again.
Yeah,
I'll probably end up agreeing with you.
They got that one right.
Seeing as they threw a 22-yard touchdown pass to Dallas Goedert on the next play, it becomes pretty irrelevant.
And watch that play too, because AJ Brown took 2 defenders with him. So even the presence of AJ Brown means a lot to the Eagles.
Johnny Mac, thank you very much for hopping on. Enjoy your long day at practice, because they get shorter from here, and we get you back here tomorrow morning. Thanks, bud.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
John.